Welcome. This is still Business Breakfast coming to you live from our studios here. And of course, we'll come to the last part of the program. Index Thursday's trading session, which tracked the daily, that is, the daily performance of activities on the Nigerian stock market, says that fast moving consumer goods companies recorded gains of 0.06% from the previous day of 564.13 basis point to 564.47 point. The gains recorded in the consumer goods index was driven mainly by Presco and Okomu and international bureaus, who gain about 5.92%, 2.39%, and 1.11% respectively. So at the end of the daily trading activity, the All-Share Index and market capitalization appreciated by 0.16% from the previous trading day to close at 40,829.15 index point, and that's about 21.28 trillion naira respectively. Okay, so let's put some insight into this now. I'll have Mr. Ambrose Omodion, is the Chief Research Officer at Invest Data Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Now, just give us a bit of the activities and the performances of activities. I mean, the market went up yesterday. Now we have market capitalization at 21.28 trillion naira. I mean, one would think that perhaps the presentation of the budget yesterday impacted on the market activities.
Yeah, actually,
how would you respond?
Actually, I would say that it's not the budget presentation to start with.
Right.
Yeah, the market has been on an uptrend for the past 6 trading days, and it's expected that because we are entering the last quarter of the year, knowing that anywhere in the world, last quarter of the year is the most active quarter, there's a lot of activities, a lot of seasonality that's associated with that last quarter. That's what we are seeing. But as we just read, what happened today on the market yesterday was, looking at the sector that really led the market, it was major banking sector that led the market yesterday. And it's because, the oil price have rallied above $80. And most of the banks before now have made what we call a lot of provision for non-performing loans. And because these banks are exposed to the oil sector and the power sector, right, and they have made provision, because CBN will say that we must make provision for bad loans, and they have made that provision before now. Now, seeing oil prices above $80 is a plus for the bank, because they have made provision for this bad loan in that sector. That means they're going to do a lot of recovery now, because oil has gone above almost 3 years high. Right. Therefore, that every investor looking at the banking sector will be the active sector in terms of performance, as we're expecting their third quarter to be in the market as from this October. But you see, people are now positioned ahead of the earnings of these banks, knowing that these banks will now have what we call recovery. And that recovery will not go as expensive. We are a straight profit to the bank, because before now they have made provision for that money. Now, they're not getting it back now. It don't go affect their bottom line, which is their profitability. It will increase. That means at the end of the year, investors in this bank are expecting a better dividend from the bank. Because when they make provision for this bad loan, right, but called by CBN, they will pay dividend that was not too commensurate to what they expected. Because banks were forced to make provision for that bad loans they give to the oil sector. And now they're going to recover those bad loans. It's a plus for the banks and their shareholders. Right. That's what I see, that there's activities in that sector. Also, if you look at companies like Okomu and Presco that gained yesterday, it's not because of the presentation of the budget by the president. You know that most of the companies have done backward integration. That means they are not dependent on FS. Right. FS already is high. That means those companies that are depending on FS to run their business are going to spend more, and they're going to eat into their profit at the end of the day. Every investor in the market wants to make profit at the end of the day. For that, if you see companies that have done backward integration, that means they are not depending on any imported goods that will affect their spending. You see, Okomu, Presco, livestock, this is the agricultural sector. Right. Also, if you look at the Nigeria GDP for second quarter, it is agriculture that drove our GDP. That means we see a lot of activity despite the insecurity in the system. That means if we have a better, better security system in Nigeria, that means that's the way most of Nigeria need to be employed. It's because most of them are not in the farm. Upon that, you can see that companies and that sector are producing good results. For me, investors, where to go is where we know that these companies are not importing anything from abroad. We farm here. For that, you see that those companies, so numbers are looking good.
Now, I need you to break it down a little for a layman in the street who wants to understand the link between what you mean by backward integration, right, and of course the performances and what impacted on the activities, especially for those industrial goods?
You know, what I mean by
consumer goods, rather, not
companies that are not importing their raw materials.
Right.
That means they find way of getting the raw material within the economy. It's called backward integration.
Right.
And also, government are giving a lot of company, it's like company like Nestle, Dangote Sugar, time to come. Within the time you are establishing your company, in the next 10 years, in the last 10 years, do what called backward. That means you pay less on imported goods. Which Dangote has gone ahead. They have done that. That's why you have different sugar farms in the north, so that they depend less on importing. Then Nestle have done going to Abara, giving a lot of farmers in Ibadan or Osun to farm what they need to do. Then that means those companies are not depending purely on imported what? Raw materials. They can look locally. That means if now that dollars are changing for almost 574, those do not affect those companies because they go to Ibadan here and pick their raw materials. But if you are bringing your materials to Nigeria, you're going to pay from your nose because even the effort that CBN is giving, it's not enough for them to import. That means they must source some from outside. But if you are not, you don't need to do that. And that's why I said Okomu and Presco, livestock, they are agricultural sector. What are they importing?
Apart from the fact that these companies you've mentioned, this consumer goods company or stocks that you've mentioned, source their materials locally, there's also an aspect where some people have said, look, or the analysis have said, look, it is also because these people are making more money now than before, in terms of the fact that the prices of these commodities, the prices of oil, the gallon on oil now, like 25 liters, has gone up, and then more money for them. So how would you relate this with what you said earlier in terms of backward integration?
Yeah, just like I just said, you know, I still go back to the agricultural sector. It's a plus for them. Like now, as you just mentioned, a 25 gallon of palm oil is about almost 22,000 naira,
right,
from almost around 13 to that. That is one. That means the price of their goods are high. That is one. Two, they are not spending more to import anything. They are still using the resources they have within Nigeria. And they are also, there's a bill that was passed that there are some liquid content which will not be imported into Nigeria again. That means palm oil, those ones, that means they have a market already. And also they use this oil also for industrial use. It's not fully consumption. It will have about 200.
So there's a big market for them already.
Exactly.
Because so that would ultimately impact all their balance sheet.
Their activities. And also if you look at their Q1, Q2, Q3 performance, they're all looking up. Tell you that this company is making money. And also don't forget that when there's inflation, you know, price of goods are high.
Right.
You now already, the price of oils are high. That means they're going to make more profits because they increase their price already.
Right.
And consumption is not reducing. You can't say because they increase palm oil, you won't put oil in your soup again. And that means consumption is still there. On that note, there will be demand for their product, price is up, that will become a double kind of profit for them. And they are not spending money to look for FS.
Interesting. But let me just
on the long run now, also the same company yesterday now kind of notified the exchange that in their board meeting that is coming up in this October,
right,
they are likely to do what we call interim dividend. For that, you see those kind of stock going up because one, they act as defensive stock because their price don't fluctuate like others fluctuate. They're defensive stock for investors, they're dividend paying stocks, and their prices are going up, and earnings is coming up. For me, that is why I see investor moving. That is why Nigerian investor, for me, I would say kudos to them because most of them are now becoming intelligent investors. They are not falling bandwagon as before. You know area where you should put your money. Those that are complaining that they're not making money in the market should look at their strategies and their plan and the plan because this thing that you should understand what you're operating because if you want to make money in the capital market, you don't need to just sit down and be sleeping in the house. You need to study.
Just before I let you go, Ambrose, I mean, you talked about the fact that banks are already recovering in terms of managing their bad loans and all of that. Yeah. And you also talk about the fact that there's a lot of activities in the consumer goods sector. So,
no, particularly looking in consumer agriculture sector, consumer goods, you know, your earnings might affect later because before if you are taking 4 gallons or 4 tin of milk, because your earning is small now because of inflation, your purchasing power is small, and price of those milk has gone up. You won't consume the 4. So
I was going to ask you, in terms of investors positioning themselves in the market, where should investors look now? You talk about the banking sector, you also talk about the agricultural sector as well.
It's probably as simple as that. Investors should look at sectors that you know that they are not dependent on importation. Because if Q1, Q2 are positive, Q3 will now redefine all the companies. Because most of them that have imported their raw materials, their Q3 will not be as good as their Q2. But for me, those companies know that they are not involved in all this importation, but they are doing well. and their Q1 was positive, Q2 was positive. That's why you key your money now because their Q3 will be positive. And when results come to the market that is positive, they are bound to be reaction. And don't forget that also the fixed income market, because government also have borrowed too much, and government is coming back to raise money to fund the budget, as has been presented yesterday. And government is ready to also to increase the rate of borrowing,
right,
because the high cost of service and debt is already high. That means they might reduce the rate of borrowing, and that also will drive funds from fixed income market. They have two markets: fixed income market where you invest for bond for all those treasury, or if the returns to the are still negative because of interest, because of inflation. Right. But the return then investors are about to move their money to equity, where dividend yield is even more than 10%. 10% is above for 364 days treasury yield of 7.5. For that, investors have to rebalance. Now we're entering the last quarter of the year. There will be a lot of rebalancing in your portfolio for them to make money. Because it's time to follow bandwagon. I'll tell you that if you're in this market, you are not really grounded, you are not really educated, you don't need to.
I think we need to leave it there. We can't exhaust it in a day. Ambrose Omodion is Chief Research Officer, Investor. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Business Breakfast.
I appreciate you.
All right, we'll take a moment now. We'll be back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is Business Breakfast coming to you from our studios here in Lagos. Of course, we have to wrap it up now. And of course, it's Friday Customer Week, we call it. And so it's time for reward for the power of service. This is where we anchor our show this week. Many thanks for watching. We'll be back again on Monday. I am Frank Komalape. Bye-bye for now.